Just a bloke in a bar. Buongiorno and welcome to another episode of Bloke in a Bar. I'm currently in Florence. Yesterday went to a wine taste testing in Tuscany. It was absolutely beautiful. But you know what it wasn't as beautiful as? A weekend of rugby league where the boys are out ripping and a tearing. Made sure to watch it, really enjoyed it. But I will say, this is when we get excited. You know, obviously we're playing Lebanon and Lebanon have been incredible in Australia, but the games we've got coming up are so exciting. This is kind of when the real competition starts. I'm so excited to have the great Gurino and Timmy. Timmy, Gurino, how are you going, boys?
We're going well, mate. As you said, the real competition, the big game just around the corner. So looking forward to seeing all these teams putting out their best 17s, which I'm sure we'll talk about throughout the show today, but really keen for it, mate.
Yeah, you're not rubbing in the background as much, Kempy, this week as last week. Last week I was waiting for a dragon to fly over the back of your head and start burning towns together or something, but a bit better this week for us. We don't have to put up with it for a couple of hours.
Did you see there was a bloke in the comments last week that didn't believe Kempy was there? It was a screensaver.
Well, there could still be a dragon fly over this backdrop because my missus is literally asleep behind me currently. So if she gets up and hits me over the back of the head, we'll have to call her a day, boys. We'll have to call her a day. Anyway, it's absolutely beautiful over here, enjoying it. But I'm very excited, guys, very excited because we are announcing a brand new sponsor of the show, Milwaukee Tools. And you might be thinking, Beak, come on, Tools, you, no chance. But I will say, obviously growing up playing sports since I was like 5 years old, I wasn't on the tools that much. I went straight into professional sport. But when I retired from or quit rugby league, I went onto a job site and I was nervous as anything, so nervous because I didn't know how to use the tools. And, you know, they've been using tools for years. I was a mature age apprenticeship, doing a mature age apprentice. And Milwaukee Tools were some of the first tools I used. Really safe, really simple to use. And they're known for the big lift. When I say the big lift, I mean the range they provide gives professional tradesmen the heavy-duty power needed to clear, cut, and maintain the outdoors without the need for petrol. No more petrol headaches, no pull starts, no engine maintenance, no mixing petrol and oil. And that's what I'm talking about. When I started, I just had no idea, whereas it's so simple to use. So the range of saws, trimmers, blowers, and equipment accessories offer the ultimate reliability and durability for the professional tradie to get it done outside. So if you're like me, or if you're a veteran tradie, you already know Milwaukee Tools get the job done. You already know that they're the best in the business. But if you're like me, that you're a little bit nervous and you've been thinking, oh, I want to do a bit of work around the house, or all that kind of stuff. As long as you do it safely and everything like that, Milwaukee Tools is the best. They're the best tools to get. So make sure, go into your local, grab some Milwaukee Tools, easy use, no petrol, all that stuff, battery charged. But let's get into the rugby league. And thanks to Milwaukee Tools for getting on board. As you guys know, we're very selective with who we bring on board. And I think we can all agree Milwaukee Tools suits bloke. So very excited to have them on board. As I said, if you're looking for some tools, you need to do some work around the house, Milwaukee Tools is the way to go. Now onto the rugby league news. Joshua Jackson retires. This bloke retires at a glamour club, and the fanfare around it would be absolutely incredible. Like, put it this way, it'd be similar to Orbo, just a bloke that gets the job done every week. I mean, it's one thing being a battler in a good side. Imagine being a battler in a really good side and then a battler in a really bad side. When it comes to like principles, it's always like principles, they don't waver or change. Regardless of the environment around you, you deliver whatever your principles say. And Josh Jackson is the epitome of that. Whether he's in grand finals or whether he's at the bottom of the table, he is going to give you everything he's got. And that's the measure of a man. It's not a man that very easy to be in front, a front runner, and everyone loves you and you're a hero and the team's killing it. And for you to get up and you get the energy and you the carry on. I mean, I was a winger. I mean, shit, that's what I did, baby. I was the front runner. But Josh Jackson, week in, week out, delivered, earned his pay packet. What an incredible career. What a guy to have around the club. And I think there was a crazy stat. Guru, have you got this stat? I won't rob you of it if you're If you've got it coming up.
I can actually claim this one this week. So throughout his entire career, outside of his debut season he played 12 games. Outside of that, for the next decade, he averaged 23 games per season.
Jeez.
So there's only 25 a year, 24 once you take out buys. He essentially played every game he possibly could. And granted, the first 2 years they played in grand finals and stuff. They played a bit of finals footy, but he hasn't played any finals footy for 5 or 6 years. So to average 23 games, the least amount of games he played outside of his debut was 17 in a season. When you think about how tough he played our game, incredible. And you go back to that debut season, Kempy, his 12th game, he was a starting back rower in a grand final. He made his debut off the bench in round 16. By round 18, he was starting. In that Canterbury brack, you're talking James Graham's, Cassianos, all these guys. He was a starting back rower after 12 games of NRL against the Melbourne Storm in the 2012 grand final. Crazy.
Yeah, as I said, because the Bulldogs are struggling right now, he doesn't get appreciated for what he has done for that club. And, 23 games, I cannot, that's Cam Smith territory. It might even be a higher average. That's so, and we're talking about a bloke that, Cam Smith, he was very smart about the way he hit contact, very crafty. Josh Jackson was a motherfucker, taking massive hit-ups, getting through 40 tackles with big contact in attack, in defence, always cleaning up, a lot bigger body as well. So usually if you've got a bigger body, not all the time, but usually the injuries can be a bit because the contact is bigger. Absolutely amazing. Timmy, I'm sure you're a big Josh Jackson fan, surely.
I do absolutely love Josh Jackson. Surprise, surprise, boys. And on his 23 games per year, he's also playing as a back rower and towards the back end of his career as a middle forward at times, playing at the lock for the Doggies. And he was pretty well 80 minutes his entire career as well. So he wasn't, playing off the bench or chopping and changing, having 30 and 40-minute games. He pretty well 80 minutes the entire time. Absolutely love Josh Jackson. He was just so no-nonsense, caused no controversy at the club. Such a perfect player to build your club around, which is what the Bulldogs did. It's disappointing to see him leave at this time when he's gone through these tough years with the Doggies. There's light at the end of the tunnel for him, a lot of hope for them leading into 2023, and he's leaving. But at the same time, the way he's exiting the game and the way he's exiting the Bulldogs, I think sums up his entire career, because he was contracted to next year on, I read a report that was $600K. So you can imagine the amount of cap pressure that was on the Bulldogs with all these new recruits, and the chat that the club would have had to have up top among the coaching staff, the boards, Josh Jackson, in order to say, look, we need to free up cash to allow Reid Marnie to come in and Viliami kick out, to extend Matty Burton was probably the big one. And Josh Jackson being the club first kind of guy that is, again, I don't know the specific details of it, but has obviously obliged, said, I can play for one more year on $600K, or I can organise it off field, free up the cap space for this club and allow them to continue to move forward, because he had more footy left in him, Josh Jackson, even if it was, a bench forward for less a minute. What an absolute champion of the game.
Yeah, it's a great point in regards to, the rumours came out that it was a pressure because salary cap, and then the Bulldogs have kind of denied that. Wherever the truth lies, the fact of the matter is the Bulldogs have more money to upgrade players. And there's one guy's name that screams, it's Matty Burton. Like, this guy is currently in the Australian squad, currently in the New South Wales squad. He's on current, the reports are around the 500K mark. You do the math, and it's like most of that's probably going to go to Matty Burton. Rightly so. And for Josh Jackson to step aside the way he did, and a guy that he didn't look, when I was watching him play this year, he didn't look busted or couldn't go around again. So I would assume, again, it's just a guess, but I would assume that there was some sacrifice from Josh Jackson to go, what's best for the club? What do I need to do? What sacrifices do I need to make? Look, you put 2 and 2 together equals 4. This bloke, he spent his whole life sacrificing for the club. You think he's not going to do it in a key point? Again, all assumptions, don't have the facts, but I think you can safely assume that this bloke has taken one for the team. And if I'm being honest, like, if I was a salary cap manager, I would probably have that conversation with him to keep Matty Burton. If that was the case, if it's a case that they really need to keep Matty in that, I would always respect a veteran of the club and always honour the contract because he has given so much to the club. But I would also let him know the situation. He would know the situation. He'd be so involved in it because he's such a veteran of the club. So you're absolutely right, Timmy. I think there probably was a little bit of a sacrifice there. And I think Bulldogs fans, I know you do love Josh Jackson, but over the next 2 years, if you start just exploding and heading up the table, don't forget this bloke could have easily said, no, I want my 600K. I've earned that. I've broken my body to bits for this club. I earned that contract. And that could have been the difference between keeping one of your key players. So always remember blokes like Josh Jackson. A lot of people won't, and that's fair enough. You can consume footy the way you want. But, if they do go on back up towards the top of the table, this moment, I think, is a quite defining moment, in my opinion.
I was just having a look through his entire career. So he scored 24 tries throughout his career, never scored a double, but round 25, 2012, scored a triple that day. Josh Jackson. So
yeah.
I did not see that coming at all. Kemby, my question to you. He's obviously the skipper. Who do you choose to take over? I think Josh Adokar is the obvious one, but do you pick a winger to captain your side? You're probably the best person to ask. What do you reckon?
Oh, well, obviously, I'm a leader of men. I could have led the Brizzy Broncos. I don't know why they gave it to Lockie. Bullshit.
Darren Hill.
No, I don't think you give it to Josh. Not because I don't think he's not a leader, but his energy is free. And maybe I'm getting a bit too vibey here, but his energy is free and happy-go-lucky. Don't put that added nonsense on him where he's got to sit in press conferences, get absolutely peppered by journos and that. Keep him as the rogue, the joker, the fun guy on the side, the guy that, if he comes to a young guy with a captain on his, arm or whatever, the younger guy might be a bit like, oh, shit. But if he comes as the guy that kind of can mould and go between different groups, which he does so well, we see it. He goes in the Origin camp, he goes to Australian camp. So I would be looking more towards, it's a tough one, but you'd be probably looking more towards, oh, man. Just going through it now.
There aren't any real standouts. I'd chuck Matt Burton in there. I'd chuck Luke Thompson in there. Maybe Reed. But
the problem is Luke Thompson's on the way out. They keep reporting that they want to move him on.
Yeah.
It's a really, really tough one. I just think that and I've been wrong about this before. When Roger Tuivasa got named captain of the Warriors, I was like, I don't like that. I want him to just be free to play rugby league. And that was wrong. And he killed it and he was fantastic. So, look, maybe Fox is the guy. Maybe he's the only answer. And maybe he wants to be a leader. It'd be an incredible achievement for him. So I agree in regards to Guru, if this is what you're saying, Josh is probably the obvious answer. That's the easy, look, everyone respects him. Everyone believes in him. Maybe what you do is you go, Josh, you've got it for a year. Matty Burton, not Matty Waterboy, sorry, bro.
Damn it. I got the captaincy then.
He's only one
Burton,
letter off too. He's told me a few times.
Yeah, I always say that Matt Burton lacks a bit of X factor.
Yeah.
Dickhead.
And I'd be honestly fast-tracking Matty Burton. I'd be putting him in leadership courses, learning everything he can from guys like Josh Adokar. I'd be trying to get one-on-one meetings with Brad Fittler. Every resource that I could pull to try to make Matty Burton a leader, I would, you don't want to overload him. He's still really young, but I would still be trying to prepare for a world. Because, in 5 years' time, I think we kind of all agree Matt Burton seems like the obvious choice in 3 or 4 years. Are we on the same page, or what do you think?
I agree with you, but I also think similar to Luke Thompson, they're not sure if he's going to stay just yet as well. So it's a bit of an awkward one for Canterbury. If you do make him the captain of the club and he leaves in 18 months' time, the optics aren't great for Canterbury. I wonder if potentially, similar to a Kalen Ponga situation, if maybe giving him the captaincy could now entice him to hopefully stay at the club as well. There's a few different ways to look at it.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I can't see Matty leaving the Doggies. Because you sit there and you go, okay, the Doggies can offer him a monster contract, whereas I'm going through top tier teams. Unless he was willing to take another pay cut, and not pay cut, but stay around that 500-600K. What top tier team really needs a six right now that would use Matty Burton the way he needs to be used? But you're right though, he hasn't re-signed, so you don't want to make him captain and bloody all of a sudden he's gone in 2 or 3 years or whatever, or even a year. So you know what? Having thought about it all, you're probably right in regards to Fox. Timmy, what do you reckon?
I'm pretty torn, boys. I'm just trying to run through the options in my head, and the probably stand out for me if they're investing in him for another year or two is Luke Thompson. And look, I've never met Luke Thompson, but on all reports, he does seem like a good leader. He seems like a natural fit for the role, particularly in the fact that if he was to go and do it for a couple more seasons, that would pave the way, Kempy, for Matty Burton, the obvious option to take over at sort of, say, 24, 25 years old. I lean a little bit the same as you with the Fox. I think he's the free spirit, the energy in the team. I like him in that role. Certainly, I don't think he'd handle the pressure, but yeah, I think probably Luke Thompson is the one. Reed Marnie's 24, but you probably think maybe he's a year or two away as well. It's a really intriguing one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's look. Put it this way: if Luke Thompson is in their plans going forward, and it's all just nonsense, the reports, Luke Thompson, I would definitely go with just because of. I've met Luke, great bloke, really easy to talk to, and also the way he plays rugby league. Even if he's not the biggest talker, the way he plays is very inspirational. Leads from the front. So yeah, look, if they're going to keep Luke Thompson, I think it's everything that I've read has really just been about the size of the contract that he's on. He's on quite a big wicket. And I think that may be the sticking point, maybe. But really interesting times with the Dogs. And as I said, massive congratulations to Josh Jackson, and thank you for your incredible service to rugby league, because he has been outstanding. James Tamou signs with the Cowboys, just quickly. Poetic. I think this is good. I think this is great. They've got a relatively young forward pack. I think he can help them. At the very least, let's say he's only playing 10 to 20 minutes a game. That's a massive win. At the very best, he finds some form again, he gets brought on for, 30 minutes and just goes really well. And in regards to teaching these young guys about consistency, about work ethic, about staying in the game, I mean, we don't have very many 300-game props, if I recall correctly. Guru, you're probably better at this than me, but I can't remember that many 300-game props. So it's kind of like old warriors, the old saying of fear a man that is old in a young man's kind of game. If a warrior has lasted to the age of 80, then that motherfucker doesn't die, which is a good thing as a warrior. And just as a prop gets to 300 games, he must be doing something right. Guru, thoughts on this signing?
Yeah, I like it, mate. And to be honest with you, I, as you just said, I agree with everything you said about the Cowboys and the young forwards and everything. But, mate, I was out there at the SCG that night when he got sent off in his last game for the Tigers, and just watching him walk off going, it's probably the biggest mistake of his entire career, just a brain explosion in that moment that doesn't represent the character of James Tamou whatsoever. And I walked away that night thinking, fuck, that's going to be the last time we're going to see this bloke, which is it's just not fair on his career and how good he's been for so long. So I am so stoked to see him get another opportunity in the NRL, and for that not to be our last memory. And, mate, I mean, he's gone to a team where he could genuinely win a competition next year. The Cowboys could win their second comp, and James Tamou would he be the only guy to win both of them? I think he would, wouldn't he? Oh, Jason Taumalolo, sorry, but one of very few. So it could be a really special way for him to finish, mate. Fingers crossed.
I got the props to play 300 games. There's a couple, but there's not many. You've got Petro, Brent Kite, Steve Price, Ruben Wiki, and then you've got guys like Aaron Blair as well. Then you got guys like Paul Gallen and Corey Parker, who weren't props, but they played in the middle, but I guess you could throw them in there. Aiden Tolman as well. And so,
like, out of what, hundreds and hundreds of front rollers,
not many at all.
There's about 5 or 6 of them. Gal is obviously not a front row. Well, not obviously, but it's pretty incredible. Incredible. Like, to make NRL and then to play 50 games, 100 games, 150, 200, it's an incredible achievement. And you're right, Guru, in regards to what happened. Like, I understand it was his decision and he took accountability for what he did on the field that game. But if there was ever evidence of a bloke almost spewing out the poison of pressure that was at that club, that was it. Like, the amount of shit that would have been going on in that club, that he would have just been like, oh my God, this is so much. Timmy, what do you think?
Yeah, really, really fitting way to end his career, I think. Heading back to the Cows, where it all started for him. And what a great signing for the Cowboys. As you said, Kempy, like, I think he probably plays a 15 to 20 minute bench role, but even if he's not playing first grade, to have him in and around that squad with the experience, like, he's a World Cup winner, obviously a legend of a bloke, a leader of men, as you like to say. He's he will bring so much to a lot of the young players in this side, and he wouldn't have signed for many pennies, I don't think. It's a win for both sides. He'll go up there, finish with the Cows, go out, you'd like to think, without a wooden spoon in his final season in the NRL. So I think it's a wonderful, wonderful story to bring in the start of the pre-season.
And just quickly, before we get to the Rugby League World Cup news, Clifford leaves the Knights. So what does this mean? I mean, Jake Clifford is going to go over the Super League. Apologies, I've forgotten who he signed. Was it Hull?
Signed with Hull, yep.
Yeah, Hull. Look, first of all, congratulations to Jake. I think this is really smart for him. Get away from the pressure. He is a very talented player. We've seen him have some good games in the NRL, and we've seen him have more than one or two good games. We've seen him have a solid run of games. So I think he's going to do well over in the Super League. And sometimes players, they just need that little confidence boost, that just away from the extreme pressure of the NRL, away from just the high intensity week in, week out. So massive congratulations to Clifford. But what does this mean for the Knights? It's kind of like, okay, well, fair enough. Like if you've got someone coming through that could take the spot, there's no confirmation on Luke Brooks. There's no confirmation on Garrett coming. It's almost like, didn't we see this happen a year ago for the Knights with Mitchell Pearce, where they just moved to 7 on when they didn't really... and look, to be honest, to be fair, it's a different setup now, because I think Peter Parr is the football manager, so maybe he's taking potentially a step back to take a step forward maybe. But it is surprising. It is surprising in regards to just how much they missed a half last year for them to go, you know what, we're going to back the fact that we're going to find another half on the market. Now, look, if they've already got some verbal agreements with Luke Brooks or Garrick, then fair enough. But I tell you what, the recent report says Garrick's about to re-sign for an extra 4 years. And the amount of time, like they tried to get Luke Brooks last year and they couldn't. Tigers haven't signed Dwahi. Apologies. We've been saying Dewey, but I think it's Dwahi. Apologies if I'm saying that incorrectly. Tigers haven't signed Hastings. It's like, I don't know. I don't get it. Guru, speak to me.
Yeah, mate, it's a bit like that. And I was joking with Matty earlier today. I did a podcast the other day about Luke Brooks potentially going to Newcastle, and I saved it as Brooks to the Knights ? I went to save it, and my computer said, you already have a file named this from a year ago. The exact same fucking thing was happening 12 months ago, and I thought, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to leave it. So I was saying to Matty before, though, Kempy, it's interesting because the Tigers, you've obviously got Dwayne, you've got Hastings, and you've got Brooks. They're all off contract when you guys are watching this today. So it becomes very interesting. I mean, they've made no secret of it, the Tigers. They want to play Hastings at 13. So they've let Jock Madden go. Seemingly, they must be confident they're going to keep Brooks. So I just hope the music doesn't stop in Newcastle and no one's in the halfback chair, because that would be an absolute disaster. And, mate, even if they do get Garrick, they move KP to 6, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I'll tell you what, if I had KP at 6, I'd want a halfback next to him. It's still, I don't know if moving KP to 6 is the answer. I think they could just create another problem realistically, which is just going to put more headlines on KP, which personally, I think Newcastle has shown they can't handle it. This
KP to 6. Look, if KP wants to do it, then KP can. He's a young hot boy. He's fresh as anything. I love that shit. But if he doesn't want to do it, and it's more, I guess, out of necessity, it's like, let the guy master the fullback position first. Let him get a couple seasons under his belt. 22 to 24 games, and we all sit back and go, he's in the top 5 Dally M, and we know, and he's reaching his potential, and we see him play week in, week out the way he plays at Origin under Slater. But you want to move him to 6? Like, oh man, Timmy, speak to me.
Just a quick side note, Kemp. You've been doing a few push-ups over in Italy. How about the size of the Warwick Farms on you?
Mate, it's just all natural, mate. All natural. You know what is funny though? I was literally, it's so funny how cultures are different. So like the other day I put in gym nearby. Bro, I'm in a city, like a big city, no gyms, like barely any gyms. Whereas in Australia, you couldn't bloody walk 10 feet without finding a gym. So
just whining Peter. On the night choice, KP. Look, I'd love to see him play some 5'8", but the glaring issue with that is obviously just the concussions. The bloke didn't finish this season and got knocked out, 3 or 4 times this year. and then you're going to put him in the front line and make him make 25 tackles a game. It just doesn't add up in that sense for me. As far as where the half situation is now, they've obviously got Tyson Gamble come in, Adam Clune's still there, Milf's on the way out, Phoenix Crossland. So, look, there's not a lot of names there that inspire you with a lot of sort of confidence going into the year. You're spot on, Guru. Let's say a Garrick or to Newcastle did eventuate. I don't think it will, but if Ponga did end up in the halves, you definitely want like a really good controlling half to give him a hand there. Look, the one we keep touching on, and I know a fair bit's still got to go on for it to happen, but he's just... I really hope Luke Brooks ends up there. I think it'd be so good. I think can revitalise his career. I think it's exactly what the Knights needed to take a bit of pressure off KP in that side. So, look, it'd be interesting. They've obviously got Mapapa Lungi there as well, who spent a bit of time in the back end of the season at centre and looked good. But aside from that, like I haven't seen a lot of him in the halves. Maybe they're sort of looking at him going, he's got a bit to offer. But again, I think you're probably looking at more of a ball running 5'8" than you are traditionally organising halfback, so whether they partnered him with a Clune, I'm not sure. I don't know where they're going with this, but it's pretty concerning.
Yeah, I agree in regards to, I hope Brooks goes there. I mean, the fact that the Tigers, I guess, are really desperate to keep him, and I know Brooks almost like kind of come out and said, you know, in the past he's kind of put the club, again, I'm just paraphrasing, in the past he's kind of put the club first to a degree. And I know some people say, are you serious on a massive wicket? But I guess for him, he would think like, I want to be the one to take us out of this tough time. Whereas recently, towards the end of the season, he kind of said, I'm just going to put myself first in regards to contract negotiations going forward. And I know Tim Sheens has got an incredible record, and they've got Benji and they've got Farah coming in, but it's kind of like too much has happened. Like it just fresh start, get in a new environment. There's something special about a fresh start for any people, like whether it's in life or in rugby league. Sometimes that is exactly, look at perfect example, Papali'i to the Eels. He's at the Warriors, and like there is not, I don't care who you are, there is no one that thought that he could turn into this player. There is no one. And if you think he could have, give me a break, hindsight. Goes to the Eels, gets a fresh start. Now he's literally one of the most consistent players in the NRL. And maybe Brooks will become that. Maybe he won't. But just part ways, baby. The relationship's over. We've had too many fights. You know, I get Pierce come home too late too often. Like, it's all good, baby. And you're too good looking for me. That's it. Boom. See ya.
I reckon, though, Kempy, there's a really good chance that the Tigers have persevered with Brooksy for 10 years, backing themselves to get it right. I wouldn't be surprised if they want to see him go one more year with a hooker like Appy. They might think that's the missing jigsaw piece. I wouldn't do it. But, mate, the way that they're so confident about Hastings playing 13 and Luke Brooks playing in the 7, I genuinely think that they want to give him an opportunity with Appy. I think they've watched Nath over the last few years, the influence Appy's had on his game. I personally think that the Tigers are going to keep him, and I think they're going to play him at halfback. It's not what I would do. I would let him go. Not all divorces are bad. This would be a good one, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do keep him.
Hastings 13?
Yeah, once again, not what I would do, but I think that's what they'll do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the thing. I agree, Guru. I really do think that's what they'll do. And you're right in regards to, we've spoken about it quite a lot, you know, the most underrated part of the Panthers' dominance, literally the most underrated part, was getting Appy Coruscant. Matter of fact, it's almost, you could argue, and you know, again, I know people hate when we do this. You could argue it's a sliding doors moment for Manly as a club and a sliding doors moment for Panthers. You could argue that if Appy stays at Manly, do they make a grand final? You know, or do they? And I understand Tommy injured but everything could have changed. He made it take pressure off the amount of work Tommy has to get through, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so yeah, maybe they believe Appy is the guy that's going to open Brooksy up. But when I look at that, I'm like, Hastings and Duahi, with Appy Coruscant, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. I'm happy.
It could honestly be the best thing to ever happen to the Tigers if Newcastle come and blow them out of the water for an offer for Brooks. And that's not taking anything away from Brooksy. That is just simply that we know Hastings is the best option at 7. I don't know why the Tigers can't see it, but I think it would do them a lot of favours. And it would do Brooksy a heap of favours as well.
And not only getting who I think we all agree which would be their best halves combo of Hastings and Dewey, freeing up a casual little $900K to spend elsewhere. Like, it just seems to win everywhere.
There's no losers.
No.
because the only way they keep Brooksy is if he gets paid $1 million, because he's already on $1 million, and he's going to get offered probably $1 million by bloody the Newey Knights because they're so keen to get a 7 there. So look, really interesting. And to be fair, there's a world where Happy Coruscant does unlock him. There really is. Remember how absolutely annihilated Cleary was getting the year before Happy arrived, and now he's everyone's favourite. I always felt that he could. It was early in his career, but there was a loud noise of like Cleary's not going to be anything. He's this, that, and the next thing. Anyway, now quickly to Garrick. Really interesting. I'm so happy for Garrick that he's getting this kind of buzz around contract, this buzz around, because if there is one bloke in that Manly side that really, really ripped and teared all year, easily in their top 3 players all year, in my opinion, I'd probably have, and in no particular order, probably him, Olakau'atu, DCE for most of the year until towards the end where that bit faded a bit. So I thought that Garrick was fantastic. Now, the rumours essentially are that Manly want to offer him a 4-year deal and put him in the centres, which I can see him playing centres. He's that versatile. He's definitely big enough. He's fast enough. He's strong enough. All that kind of stuff. Do we think they're a chance of losing a guy like Garrick? What do you think, Guru?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, if I'm Garrick and I'm going to go to Newcastle, mate, I think I wanted in my contract that I play fullback and nothing else. Because if this whole KP thing doesn't work, instead of finding himself on the sting for the Manly Seagulls with Turbo putting him over every third set, if he ends up on the wing for the Newcastle Knights and they're not going well, mate, that would be devastating for his career, realistically.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And he seems like a Manly boy. He seems to really enjoy the area. So to go up there away from home and you're just sitting on the sting, in saying that, I tell you what, it does make a bit toey. Dominic Young, Caleb Ponga, and Ruben Garrick on the sticks. Oh, yeah. Timmy, what do you reckon?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation with Rubes because 12 months ago, if you said he could go out there and look for fullback money, you'd probably say, look, maybe, but doubtful. He's proven now with Tommy Turbo missing such a string of games this season for Manly that he can and is capable of being, I'm not going to say top 3 or even top 5 fullbacks in the game, but he can command fullback money, which I think, the best wingers in the game these days, maybe as Brian Toto as a bit of an exception, might command 500-600K at most. A solid fullback can, push 750-800K. So he's proven that I think he's worthy of fullback money. I don't know what Manly will be able to offer him because he's obviously going to be playing second fiddle to Tommy Turbo. There's probably a handful of clubs in the NRL that he would start at fullback at, and if you can go to one of those and get an extra 200,000 or 300,000, whether Newcastle is one of those clubs, maybe if they're serious about the KP switch, but you can just see that flipping on its head very quickly. So, look, I like him at Manly. I like him, if not at fullback, then on the wing. But yeah, look, if he is genuinely looking to move elsewhere, I think there might be a few clubs without a fullback putting their hand up, and we won't have heard the last of it.
And I think that's what annoys me. You say there's a couple of clubs in the NRL where he should be a starting fullback. Newcastle isn't one of them.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, they are not one of them. And I personally think that Newcastle probably need to have a look in the mirror because, respectfully to them, every time KP plays for anyone else at fullback, he kills it. He was my player of the series in Origin this year. I'm not sure if this is a KP problem as much as it is a Newcastle problem at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's just this 6 thing is just so strange to me. Like, the bloke has struggled with injury for 3 or 4 years now, and you're going to make him get an absolutely... You think, okay, you're in a video session. Oh, yeah, we're playing the Knights. Who do you reckon we're going to run up today? Is it the superstar fullback playing 6? I think it might be. Is it the guy that can absolutely tear us apart whenever he gets the ball? Okay. Jason Tamalolo. See that guy? I want you to run at him 15 times today. Like, it's just... Anyway, we'll move past that. But I'm stoked for Garrick. I really am. What an incredible year he's had, especially in such a tough year. But let's get to the Rugby League World Cup. So the quarterfinals will be Australia versus Lebanon, New Zealand versus Fiji, Tonga versus Samoa, England most likely versus PNG. By the time you watch this, we'll probably
we'll
have
know
a result.
by the time. Yeah.
But look, it's probably going to be PNG. It'd be one of the biggest losses probably ever for them if they don't win this game to get into the quarterfinals. Look, what do you? All right, we'll preview quickly. Oh no, we'll go through the games first. Sorry. Anyway, so New Zealand versus Ireland, 48-10. This, for me, Jerome Hughes, wow, absolutely amazing. Just watching Jerome Hughes, I'm like, I don't think we've seen the best of him. Like, I think there's still more to come. We just forget. We're talking about a kid in his third year of 7. Think about that. His third year of 7, or 3.5 or whatever. I'm sure someone has the friggin' days and hours and minutes in the comment section. We're talking about a guy absolutely killing it at 7 in his first game back, roughly 3 years playing the 7 role. I don't think we've seen the best of Jerome Hughes. I think that I would go like, okay, look, there's Cleary, and Cleary is alone for sure. But when it comes to a running game for a 7, I don't know. I think Hughes is probably number 1 when it comes to running game. And I think that, let's say Cleary plays his best game of footy and Hughes plays his best game of footy. I don't think the gap is as big as a lot of people think. Now, we're talking about the back-to-back premiership. We're talking about a guy that's akin to GOAT status for that age when it comes to stats. But when they both play their best, although I still think Cleary is the number 1 half, I truly believe the gap between them is nowhere near as most people would go, are you serious? It's not even close. I don't think it's as big as people think. What do you reckon, Guru?
I think that the halfback that is most likely to outplay Nathan Cleary on any given day is without a doubt Jerome Hughes. And I don't think there's any doubting that. And I think, as much as this game was against Ireland, we're well and truly aware of that. He's been doing this for years. When he comes off that right foot, shut the gate. It's over. If he comes off his right foot 20 metres out, it's done. He's going to score every day of the week. And you got to remember for Hughesy too, this is his first game in 6-7 weeks? I mean, he's been out for quite some time, and to come back in that fashion, very impressive. Obviously a Kangaroos fan, and if we could play the Kiwis eventually without Jerome Hughes, I'd be stoked.
I understand it's not a strong opposition, but newsflash, every big team has played not strong opposition, and I don't think any 7 has had that good of a running game, especially the first half. So really exciting, and it's exciting for New Zealand. You've got this gun 7 that's one of the best in the comp, top 3. Then you've got a young 6 in regards to Dylan Brown, who's 22. It's super exciting. You got Foran leading them in regards to off the field. It's super exciting. In saying all that with that positive stuff, I will say I was a little bit disappointed with New Zealand as a whole. I thought they looked a bit clunky, which is understandable. It's Hughes' first game. I thought Dylan Brown was struggling a little bit to get used to the timing of a guy like Hughes because he's probably so used to a guy like Moses, who is a very different player. Now, I think the Irish had a very specific game plan of just rushing up. And usually when you've got a game plan of rushing up, if you're in a club side and you've played together so long, you immediately recognise it. You go, okay, we know what's happening here. Let's change our rhythm. Let's change our spacing. Let's change the distance between us and them, and then we'll be able to score. In regards to kicks in behind, hitting short lines, quick play the balls. I just think because New Zealand, although they were a little bit disappointing and they were a little bit clunky, I think it's understandable because they've got 2 new halves playing together. So. Although a little bit clunky, understandably. What do you think of the game, Guru?
Yeah, mate. I mean, it is what it is. New Zealand, they got the job done. I agree with you. I wasn't overly stoked with their performance, and I don't think they would be either. But as you said, Hughes' first game. Have him and Dylan Brown played together before? Did they play a test at the start of the year, Matty?
Oh, Google it.
Yeah,
yes, they played once. They beat Tonga.
Sweet. So one game, the first time they've played together an X amount of time. So a little bit clunky. And it's also not anywhere near their full strength side. I don't think Nakora, he'll be playing in the centres. I don't think that Nelson will be starting on an edge. So still plenty of changes. You've also got, I think we all forget, Brandon Smith. As good as he is, he's still learning the position that he's playing at the end of the day. So, as always is the way with these Kiwi sides, you're crazy to judge them on the group stages. You judge them on their last 2 weeks because that's when they tend to play their best footy. Yeah,
and also, one big glaring problem is the goal kicking. Holy shit! Yeah. If they convert all their goals, it's probably bloody 60 points. But I guess, I wanted to talk. We'll talk about Hargreaves first, then we'll talk about the goal kicking. The Hargreaves comes up, sent 10 in the bin for half time when he's high tackle on Ireland prop. I'll be honest here. I thought the commentators were a bit dramatic about this. I'm happy to be wrong. Maybe I'm too old school. I don't know. And I'm not saying like, oh, yeah, I love it when they used to drop elbows and heads. Rah, I'm not at all. Yes, it was a head high. Yes, I'm happy with 10 in the bin. But I kind of felt like it bounced up off the ball and it was just an aggressive tackle that went wrong. And I kind of feel like the fact that it was Hargreaves, because he's, got the form, made it even more dramatic than if it was another forward that, made that tackle. To be clear, yes, it was a head high. Yes, it was 10 in the bin. But I don't know. I personally was like, he was talking about swinging arms in that. And I was like, I didn't see a swinging arm. I saw a bloke trying to wrap a player up. And again, I'm happy to say I'm incorrect in regards to it was a swinging arm or whatever, but I thought he was trying to wrap the ball up. I didn't see a swinging arm. His shoulder and arm was swinging at the same time. Am I crazy here? Am I being Guru, or did you think it was pretty bad?
No, I didn't think it was as bad as what they carried on with. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, once you get this tag in rugby league, it's hard to shake. And Jared is just one of those guys. Unfortunately, it's not fair, but I mean, they're always going to go after him. If that was a winger that made that tackle, very different conversation, I think.
Well, what's crazy is it wasn't as bad, but one of the Irish players did a head high, and it wasn't as bad. But then they were like, oh, that's part of his game. That's what makes him so great, is because he's so passionate. And then, you heard the commentator catch himself, and he's like, yeah, similar to Hargreaves, he's just got to rein it in a little bit. And it's like, bruh. And when I'm watching, I'm like, you know what? Maybe when people hear Australian commentators, we're super biased. So I don't know. But it did seem like, I personally thought, yep, 10 in the bin. Yep, a week should be good, in my opinion. Timmy, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, boys. I think there was a little bit too much carry on that one. It was definitely a reputational-based thing with Jared Hargreaves. He, as Guru mentioned, if it's a squeaky clean player with a better image, when I say better image, a better judiciary record and not being known for being such a ruthless player on field, there's no way the carry-on is as much as it was. So 10 in the bin, move on, get over it.
It got called a dog shot. I was like, what? How's that a dog shot? What are we talking about here? Yeah, and look, I know that there's some people that are very passionately anti-Hargreaves, and that's understandable. He crosses the line. It was wrong. He's got crazy form. It was his first game back from suspension, if I recall correctly. So I'm granting all that. I'm not saying he's some unfairly maligned player, but when you look at the tackle, it wasn't I personally don't think it was as bad as some people were saying. But let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Do you think that it was a bit worse than what we're making out? Or do you think that, maybe it was because of the fact that he does have a tendency to do it quite regularly that made it a little bit worse? Now, the kicking. This is interesting. This is because, when it's fine to do this in the group stages, but do you think this may be a selection error from Michael Maguire that they don't have a kicker currently? Or am I not remembering a kicker that's going to come back in and be able to kick?
Mate, I was just having a look through the squad myself, and there isn't really a standout kicker, especially in this 18 they've got here. Matty, can you have a look at the extended squad to see? But
I honestly don't think there is, man.
Yeah.
I went through it when I was watching. I don't think there is.
And I mean, who kicked the other night? Jordan Rapana kicked the other night. I mean, Timmy, is he in the top?
He's ordinary, mate. He's not
in the top 3 Canberra kickers.
I absolutely love Jordan Rapana, but the man was not put on a footy field to kick goals. Granted, he's kicking for his country, so he's doing something right. Yeah. But when we look at coming up in what's likely to probably be a semi-final clash with Australia, with Nathan Cleary kicking on one side and, say, Jordan Rapana or Dylan Brown kicking on the other side, you're essentially giving away a 4 to 6 point start against Australia, which is just, you're starting on the back foot big time. So I'm just trying to think, is there anyone that could have been selected in the squad, the entire squad, for their goal kicking? I'm trying to go through the options, but there's not a lot.
Jordan Rapana kicked in their mid-season game as well. So, I mean, they've had a bit of time to think about this, and they haven't been able to come up with any. And I don't know if there's just no options out there. I'm not sure. But, yeah, I think it could be costly at some point.
I mean, surely, and this is hard because he's an international coach, and maybe he did do this, so apologies if you did, but surely you're reaching out to the key guys and going, mate, I need you to begin practice kicking immediately, so that when we get to the World Cup, you're ready to go. And maybe he did reach out and do that. For example, so Jordan Rapana started, and then Dylan Brown took over. And boys, I love Dylan Brown. I love him more than, he's the coolest man in all the land, but coolness doesn't get the ball over the post, unfortunately. he wasn't the best, and then he was getting kind of heckle, and they were cheering when he did get one. It's a real concern. It's a real concern because Australia, they're not going to allow a blowout score against. I mean, maybe they will, and New Zealand will be one of the great victories, but I don't think Australia's going to allow a blowout to happen, and it really could be a 4 to 6 point difference, and that could be the game. That really could. That's how closely these two squads are aligned.
Just on that, Kempy, I was just
else?
having a look back to their last games they played in 2019. They had 2 goal kickers during that year. Isan Masters was one of them. The other one was Jermaine Osako, who neither guys you probably want to pick in your 17, but geez, I can definitely talk for Jermaine Osako. He's definitely going to strike a ball better than Jordan Rapana, but I definitely want Rapana in my side more. I think they're in a tough spot as far as that goes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's one of those things that if you can keep like a system for a long period of time as an international coach, you can start implementing picking certain players that are going to be key players and get them to start practicing at training and that. Anyway, so we'll just say New Zealand, although a little bit clunky, the clash, if they do make it through to Australia, oh my God, it is going to be a clash for the ages. I still think Australia has a little bit of class. I think that the real point of difference, the scary point of difference for New Zealand is their forward pack, because it's a motherfucker. It is a motherfucker. So there's not much difference separating them. Now, quickly on to England versus Greece. Look, England, wow. We talked. What did we speak about last week? We said we need them to be ruthless. You can't afford to be rolling into the quarterfinals, letting lower tier teams putting 12, 16 or whatever it is on you. And they responded. They did exactly that. They came out. They were ruthless. Now, I will say I still believe there's a little bit of a class difference between New Zealand, Australia, and England. But if they can, when it comes to like everything they can do, like everything they can possibly do to be the best they can be, I feel like England are doing it. Like I feel like every player is playing nearly as good as they can play. And they're just getting closer and closer to the standard of Australia and New Zealand. And I know, like, English are listening, they'll be like, you serious? Like, we only lost 6-0 last World Cup to Australia in a World Cup final. But I just think that we were probably guilty of underestimating England coming into this World Cup. And I think they proved, well, they personally, I can't speak for Guru or Timmy, personally, I think they've proven me not wrong, but they've definitely gone better than I expected them to go. There's absolutely no denying, in my opinion, that they're a top 3 side in the World Cup currently. Whereas coming into the World Cup, I think most people would have had them 4th or 5th even, maybe even 6th. So they've proven a lot of people wrong, including myself, I guess. And I think that guys like Dominic Young, wow. And also like little things. So they bring on their kind of like Mark Schneid. He's like essentially one behind George Williams. He was arguably man of the match. And I just think that yesteryear, did England have that kind of depth? I don't know if they did. Like they could just bring someone in and then put 94 points on. Like they were usually, their first 13 was pretty strong, and then outside of that was a little bit. So I really think I like what I'm seeing in England. I really think that they're improving. I think that, put it this way, in 4 years' time, rolling into the World Cup, I will be surprised if they're not very close to Australian standard. That's how much progress I feel like they're making. Guru, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I think the beauty of it is that, the vast majority of the guys we're watching for England, they are young guys. So, like, you almost feel like if it's not this World Cup, you feel like the next one, they could really give it a shake. Because those guys that are 23, 24 now, 4 years' time, you're 27, you're 28, you come into the peak of your career, you get a new bunch of young guys coming in as well. So I'm really excited for them. I'm very keen to see next week, where I'm assuming they'll play Papua New Guinea, who I think have been really good throughout this competition. I think they lost their first game, and I thought to Tonga, I thought they were incredibly unlucky to lose that game. I've been really impressed with PNG, despite them missing a couple of really key guys, and I think they'll really take it to England. And I think it'll be interesting to look back in 3 weeks' time and go, okay, did England go through the group stage a little bit too easy, or have they just taken confidence from that group stage to roll into those big games? Because, the reality is 3 good wins. Samoa, essentially didn't get off the bus that day, gave it to France despite conceding a couple of tries, and then had a training run against this Greek side. I wonder if it is maybe not the greatest preparation that they need to take on your Australia, your New Zealands, these sort of sides heading into finals?
Yeah, I mean, granted, it goes without saying, this is when the real competition starts in regards to getting close to those top-tier teams. But I don't know. I can't recall an England side being this dominant through the group stages. Again, maybe you could talk about the 90s and that. I don't know much about the 90s in regards to World Cup footy. But I just think that, it's very easy to go, and I'm not saying you're doing this, Guru, but look at their opposition. But it's but they did what they were supposed to do. They won by 90 fucking points or 90 or 88 points. What else could they do? It's almost like the Samoa situation. They had a big win last week. They had a big win this week. And all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, yeah, but it's against lower tier teams. It's like, yeah, but what else? What could they do then to convince you that they're doing everything they can? So Newcastle Knights must be licking their lips at Dominic Young, surely.
How improved is he over the last 2 years? I didn't think he'd last 10 rounds when he started last year.
No, agreed.
He was all over the place.
Yep, his positioning, his catching, it was this guy is way out of his depth in the NRL, and then boom, he has been outstanding. What do you reckon about England, Timmy?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be heading into the knockout stages with about as much momentum as a side could really have. And what's intrigued me, or impressed me, I should say, is just the versatility between players in the key positions. So for that, the game on the weekend against Greece had Makinson playing at fullback, Wellesby, the star half from game one of the tournament against Samoa, played at centre. They had Snide and George Williams in the halves. And the fact that Snide kicked goals over Makinson in this clash, amazing goal kicker, by the way, is I just wonder which way they're going to go with their spine to coming next week's first knockout round, because you've obviously got Sam Tompkins to come back in at fullback there, but I'm not certain of which way they will go in terms of Snide and Makinson and where they're going to play these players. Is it a case of them saying, all right, these 4 or 5 of our best players, find a way to get them in your team wherever you can? If that is, I don't think Makinson will play fullback because they've got Tompkins coming back as a skipper of that side, but playing players all over the shop. So this is going to bode really well for them come knockout stages, dealing with any potential injuries, if there's any HIAs mid-game, any of that, they're very well prepared for it. And the one for me who's just getting better and better with age, and I know it's hard against some of this opposition, but big Tommy Burgess has been wonderful for them. 49 minutes, 12 tackle busts, a pair of tries. Now, not looking too much into it in terms of Greece, but when they do get to these knockout stages in the bigger games, there's the mongrel in Tommy Burgess and Johnny Bateman, and I reckon they're the ones who are going to need to stand up because they're going to come up against some pretty hectic forward packs, and they're the two big ones for me.
Yeah, in regards to another point of this game, Victor Radley went off in the first half. Their main linchman in the middle or linchpin kind of guy, that all their attack around it. And I think that's also not really getting appreciated. They did this with as you just alluded to, Timmy, a makeshift kind of not even their best side. I mean, you could argue that maybe only Australia has really managed to keep that standard when they bring in other players. I think even New Zealand suffered a little bit when they moved people around. I think it's really exciting for England. I think as well, I think it's going to put, a lot of these English guys don't want to move to Australia, which is understandable. It's away from home. But I tell you what, there's a fair few players in there. If I'm an NRL club, I'm fucking knocking on their door. I think the period where it was almost like, don't bring Super League players over, it just doesn't work. I think after this World Cup, you'd have to say, I mean, again, let's wait until they play Australia and New Zealand for sure. But I don't know. I'd be looking a lot harder than we've been looking over the last few years.
Well, there's the guy that I mentioned during the season. He's linked to the Newcastle Knights. We got to see him the other day. Kai Pearce-Paul, big bit of gear, playing in the centres. He could play in the back row or in the centres. He had a try. He had 2 tries. He went for 197 metres, 2 line breaks and 7 tackle breaks. I reckon he's one that could come over here and be really successful. He's very young, so I think it's the perfect time to bring him over here now. So hopefully the Newcastle Knights are able to lock down his signature because he's one that I really like.
Agreed. Now, Fiji versus Scotland. We'll just go through this quickly because I don't really have that much time. But, Fiji, they're almost a little bit of a bogey side in regards to, I wouldn't take them too lightly if I'm New Zealand. I wouldn't take them too lightly. I don't think that, obviously New Zealand have a better side on paper, but I don't think it's so out of the realm that Fiji up put pressure on them, and then all of a sudden, what happens if New Zealand, thought they were going to have an easy game, and then they're in the trenches, and then some miraculous thing happens, Kikau or Appy or Sivo does something amazing. I don't think they should be slept on in regards to. I don't think it's going to be as simple as like, oh yeah, New Zealand will definitely win. We'll just move forward. Like, don't get me wrong, they're definitely very, very short favourites. But I think Fiji have been pretty good. I really do. Now, obviously, the 14 points is a bit concerning from Scotland. I think Fiji are a better side than that. But when you watch them play and you see some of the stuff that they can do and break games open out of the middle of nowhere, I think Fiji have done really well this World Cup.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it should be noted that in this game, they were well and truly in control. Then Appy, he went off after 32 minutes. If Appy stays on the field the whole game, they're a completely different side, and it changes their entire game plan. It gives them so much direction, obviously. So keeping Appy on the field will be massive for them. And I agree with you, mate. I think they'll give the Kiwis a run for their money. I wouldn't be surprised if New Zealand run away with it in the last 20, 25. But I think it's going to be a really good game, that one.
Timmy?
Yeah, I mean, boys, last start, Fiji versus New Zealand. Fiji knocked them off in the knockout stages, quarter final of the 2017 World Cup, that infamous, I think it was 4-2 victory. So on that game alone, I know it was 5 years ago now, but with the form that Fiji have shown so far this tournament, the Kiwis, well, they know they can't take them lightly because they've lost to them before and been knocked out of a World Cup. So I cannot wait for this game. As I said, they'll be going with that underdog mentality with absolutely nothing to lose. The Kiwis, all the pressure on them. They're playing some really, really good footy. Can't wait for it.
Now on to Australia versus Italy. This is an interesting one. This is a really interesting game. A little bit concerned about the completion rate. I think even they kind of mentioned it. Again, Australia still played really well, and I just love their defence. They're so aggressive and ruthless, and I personally don't think any other World Cup side has the same consistent, aggressive, clinical defence. Like, it is just super, super clinical, super aggressive. They never give you a set to just, kind of get through your plays. But it was a little bit concerning in regards to completion rate. Granted, you had a 6 and a 7 that are both 7s and they hadn't played together before. I still think Australia are clear. When it comes to what I've watched from Australia compared to every other team, I still consider them clear favourites. But let's talk about the two big points, in my opinion, coming out of this game. First is DCE versus Cleary. I just think that, you guys know my feelings on this. Like, I think it's DCE's time. I think it's Cleary's time. I really do. And I got a lot of respect for Cleary, for DCE. After the game, he got interviewed and he was very, very honest, but also, very accepting of the situation. Would have been very easy for him to feel a bit like, well, hang on a sec, I've been around here for about 10 years. Like, maybe I should be the incumbent or whatever, but he seemed very respectful, but also honest. But in my opinion, it's got to be Cleary. It really does. What do you reckon, boys?
Yeah, I agree, mate. And I thought DCE had the better game in this one, and it doesn't change anything for me. It has to be Cleary. There's no question about it whatsoever in my mind. You mentioned the completion rate there, and I understand that the Kangaroos had more ball and whatnot, but they made more errors than Italy. And fuck, there was some shit errors in there. Like 10 errors for Australia, 9 for Italy in a 66-6 win.
Yeah, and the thing is like we spoke how praisingly last week of ruthlessness, and that's an example of not being ruthless. It's an example of going, look, we're going to get the win. Let's try some plays. Let's try and score in every second or third play, which is human nature. It happens, and you could make the same argument for England last week, where they for 15 minutes or so they just lost their way a bit and thought they could score whenever they could. But so I'm hoping that that's not. I don't think it will be. I think that. It is Lebanon, so it's going to be interesting to see how they turn up. But I think that was more a case of just they thought that we can score kind of every play, and then they made those errors. Timmy, what do you reckon about DCE versus Cleary?
Yeah, I've been pretty vocal as well, boys. Nathan Cleary every day of the week for me is the Australian number 7 for these big knockout games coming up. What was interesting is Mal Meninga telling media that he's considering playing both Cleary and Ches in the side, which, like, he's lost the plot if he does. Even if he wins the World Cup with them like that, he probably will. I don't care. He's lost the plot because you've got Ben Hunt who can step in the halves. You've got Harry Grant who can play in the halves if someone goes down. Like, it just makes no sense. So if he seriously plays both of them in this side, it's basically him going, I can't decide, so I'm going to pick them both. But it's just got to be Cleary by himself, doesn't it?
And mate, to be honest with you, if he does decide to pick both of them, like this Kiwi, like eventually when they play the Kiwis, this Kiwi pack is too good to fuck around with two halfbacks in your side. Yeah. It's ridiculous. You can't do it, and you can't possibly leave Ben Hunt or Harry Grant out of this side. So I'd be very against it.
I think he's just playing the media a bit, and I think that me personally watching it as the Queenslander, I see a lot of similarities to the way the Queensland side kind of was handled in regards to, like, there was definitely loyalty, but there was almost this, like, you don't the jersey isn't owed to you. It isn't owed to you. You have to, every time you cross that line, you better earn that jersey. And and you can see it, like, every game they've played, you don't see any player being super lazy. Their line speed is always good. They're always running hard. It'd be very easy for a few of those Australian superstars to go, look, Mal, I'm going to wait till the finals. Give us a call then. Until then, I'm going to get through 5 to 10 hit-ups and it's going to win. It's all good. But it hasn't been like that. It really hasn't been like that. I personally think it's more just about creating competitive tension around the squad, because that's what you need in the better squads. There was even a little report of bloody Tino and Lindsay Collins pushing and shoving at training. And when I heard that, I was like, that's music to me bloody ears. The fucking big dogs are going at it. And they're about to play like Italy. That's beautiful stuff. Like, that's the intensity at which they're training. And so I think that's the environment he likes to create, where, like, no, every single player is here to fucking do a job. And if you aren't going to respect the jersey, no matter how good you are, you don't deserve to be here. But I think it's going to be Cleary. And they could still win the comp with DC as 14, but I think it'd be crazy to lose a guy like Ben Hunt and Harry Grant in the middle there, for a guy like DC who he's played a bit of 14 for Queensland, but yeah, Benny Hunt and Harry Grant have got to be it. Another little schmokey, one of our favourite boys, I guess we were a little bit surprised that he made the squad, even though we were talking about how he was essentially, if Latrell and Tommy weren't in, that he should maybe get a chance at the New South Wales centre spot. Campbell Graham, do you reckon he may have snuck his way into a wing spot over Tuolangi? Now, Tuolangi's been good as well, so what do you reckon, Timmy?
Well, my initial thoughts were still Fox and Val on the wings, so I think there won't be a spot for Campbell Graham still, but you can tell he's clearly, like, sneaking his way in there. He's winning over a few in the Australian camp because he's getting more and more of a run, but I still think they'll go with Val on the wing with the Fox. What do you reckon, Guru?
I told you bastards this last week and you laughed at me. I'm telling you, he's closer to this side than what you're giving him credit for. I still reckon they will go Val, but mate, I wouldn't be surprised if they do give Campbell Graham an early shot during the final series just to see what he's about. Because, mate, his kick returns and everything have been sensational. I know it's not against top-tier nations, whatever, leave it in the comments, but I've been so impressed with him. And, we've spoken about him, obviously, for Rabbitohs this year. He's been great. When he used to play on the wing, he was sensational there. So I'm expecting Val to get that wing spot, but I wouldn't shock me at all to see Campbell Graham getting a gig there.
Well, see, this is what I feel. I agree with you. Val, Addo-Carr, for sure. But I tell you what, next year and the year after, because this has been the perfect opportunity for Campbell Graham, just to get an opportunity, even against lower tier, show what he can do. Val, how old is Val? What, about 29, 30, around there? Could you please check for us, Matty? And so
27.
It's just
Val.
27.
Is he really?
Holy
fucking hell. That's unbelievable.
Wow. Holy shit.
Yeah. I guess he was like that. That was pretty much his first year when they won that comp, wasn't it? That was only 2016, so that's crazy. He's 27. He's already been to the NFL and come back. That's fucked.
Yeah, come back and he's killed it. But to be fair, though, I think that, like, let's say Campbell Graham goes back and plays really well next year, and let's say Val Holmes comes out and has a quiet year, this little opportunity here could be the reason why Campbell Graham gets a crack over Val. And all of a sudden it's gone from one of the best international wingers we've seen in Val to, oh shit, like, we really don't know who's going to be picked there. And this is not, I think Val's played really well, like, not all. It's more just a a compliment to Campbell Graham, and I think he's taken a lot of people by surprise. I think a lot of fans that don't really watch Rabbitohs games, because he doesn't do big highlight plays, because you don't see him, all over the news, big stretch, you don't really appreciate what this bloke does. But what I love for Campbell Graham is there's a bunch of Aussie fans that go, oh shit, big stretch on the sting, get him in there. So I agree, it'll be Val and Fox, but I think that, put it this way, how many times have we seen young guys get put in an Australian squad, don't really take their opportunity, and then the next roll around of Australian squad, they just don't really make it? Campbell Graham has done everything he possibly could, as long as he continues to play well at club, to be in the frame, in the conversation, to get a spot in a squad next year. But outside of that, boys, anything else in regards to Australia?
Not a heap, mate. Just obviously we've spoken about him a lot this year, but mate, some of the touches that Latrell Mitchell can have, he's just that one. I think it was Cleary turned him under, and before he even caught the ball, I knew he was going to score a try. There was just no stopping him when you turn him under like that. He is just a juggernaut, and there was an offload that he threw to Taulagi. Like, he just can't be stopped. On his day, he just cannot be stopped, Latrell. And I think when I do have a look at these other sides, I just don't think any other team has a centre like him that you can just throw the ball to, and he can create 4 tries in a game out of absolutely fucking nothing, because he is the biggest, the fastest, and the most talented guy on the field. He is just a freak.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think the one thing for me coming out of this, what was an unbelievably lopsided weekend of Rugby League World Cup action, and, the naysayers are out there saying, oh, this is shit. There's too many one-sided affairs, but it's been so good to see in all of these games the Minnow Nations are getting across the stripe. This weekend, in all the blowouts, they all scored a try and creating these just magical moments for their country that, whether it be the try scorer, the bloke who assisted, the bloke who was at the game who saw his Minnow Nation score a try against Australia or New Zealand. There's been some wonderful moments. So good to see them getting on the board.
Yeah, for sure. And just quickly with Latrell, like, you could almost see the opposition be kind of like in awe of, like, he's a different breed. Like, he's a different kind of beast on the field. You look up, you see, that's Latrell Mitchell run at me. I remember when I played Wendell Saylor on his first game back from return from rugby union. And I remember he ran out, and I couldn't believe how big he was. I was like, I thought he was a kind of very fast, not too big winger. He came out, he must have been 105, 110 kegs. And it's similar with Latrell. Like, these guys are huge, and you're going, how are you so big and mobile? And also with your silky hands and Latrell Mitchell, Latrell is the kind of guy, because, like, he's polarizing to some people, and he's almost kind of embraced that now, where he's gone, you know what, if you're going to boo me, if you're going to do this, I'm going to yell back at you. It's almost like, how many times do we have to be reminded about this guy? How many times does he have to take the absolute piss before we just go, he's unbelievable. This guy he is a generational talent. He's still only 24. He just turned 25 years old. He's got 2 premierships, Origins, Dally M's positional. Like, it is just amazing what he's doing. In regards to the lower tier nations, I understand the people on the, saying, oh, it's blowouts. What's the point of this? What's the point of that? It's like, what's the alternative? You just stuff it. Let's not even try to grow the game. It's like, at least put it this way. How long ago was, like, Tonga not even close to Australia? Like, it was almost like, yeah, okay, good luck with that. Now all of a sudden we have to genuinely be concerned that Tonga can beat us. Samoa, obviously, it's going to be, we're going to see this week, see how they go, but you can't tell me they haven't improved. And this is the only way that we are going to grow the game, is if we have these blowout scores, but we keep pushing through, we keep the development. And the next game is the perfect example. Lebanon, 74-12. 74-12 Lebanon. And it's not just a one-off, because we saw them earlier in the competition. What was it, 36-12 against the Kiwis or something along those lines?
Yep.
Like, Lebanon have been the Cinderella story of the World Cup. They've been the Cinderella story of the World Cup. Rajab was fantastic to score 74 points. I tell you what, I really do like. I apologize if I'm saying it incorrectly, but Rajab, the guy with the strongest hair in all the land, I like it. He's got something about him. There's something about, like, he doesn't really fit the mold. Like, he's not like a Mitchell Moses kind of silkiness. He's probably maybe a little bit more silky-ish than Josh Reynolds. Maybe, I don't know. I'd have to see a bit more of him. But he has that kind of Josh Reynolds cult-like vibe to him, like where you're really a cult hero kind of vibe to him. He seems aggressive. He's in your face. He loves to get amongst it. I think the doggies have got something special there with him.
Hey, Kempy, sorry. I was just going to say, you said before, it wasn't that long ago that your Samoas, your Tongas, they weren't really competing in these World Cups. Like, I just went back to the 2000 World Cup just to show you how far we've come. Like, for example, Ireland beat Samoa in the 2000 World Cup. Ireland beat fucking Samoa. I mean, you can't imagine a world where that happens. What other results do we have here? Papua New Guinea beat South Africa by 10 points. Like you can't tell. France beat Tonga 28-8 in the 2000 World Cup. Like, you can say it's all stupid and it's worth nothing, whatever. The evidence is fucking in front of you that it is worth it, and we have a much better comp for it. There is no doubt about that whatsoever.
And in the meantime, I think the sort of naysayers and the people who are a bit glass half empty going into the group stages, just I think change your perspective a little bit. The group stages are for these minnow nations and give them the opportunity to develop on the world stage and get the attention and give some of these lesser-known players the opportunity to flaunt their talents and create these beautiful moments that we've seen across the tournament so far. The business end of the tournament will come. We're going to get 3 rounds between quarters, semis and final, and we'll see the big dogs slug it out. But just enjoy the group stage for what it is.
Yeah, totally agree. I feel sorry for Lebanon, though. What about their luck getting Australia in the quarterfinals? It's like, oh, shit. Oh, man, we could have got any of the other teams and had a fighting chance. Like, obviously, against New Zealand went okay. But I think Australia's going to be a bit too much. I really do. Sorry, guys. I've got to go soon. So what we'll do is we'll just preview the games rather than review it. Obviously, Tonga 92-10. Great win by Tonga, coming into form at the right time. Samoa 62-4 to France. Another great win for Samoa. But let's get to the previews quickly. Australia versus Lebanon. We'll just do this quickly because, again, I just want to give Lebanon such credit. And there, as I said last week, there is quite a large Lebanese community in Australia. So they're actually positioned quite strangely in the sense that they'll be able to get people with Lebanese descent in Australian systems. But then if they want to play for their heritage, all of a sudden, they're a chance to build kind of out of nowhere. But Australia versus Lebanon, I mean, we'll be quick with this. I think Australia win, and I think they win well. But what an incredible moment for Lebanon as a country to be able to get into the quarterfinals. But let's get to New Zealand, Fiji. How do you see this playing out, Guru?
Yeah, I've got New Zealand winning this one, mate, as I'm sure most of us do. But as I said, I think Fiji will put up a good fight. I'm keen to see the Kiwis put out their full-strength squad. I want to see Papali'i in the back row. I want to see Tapane at 13. I want to see Hughesy, Brown, Manu at fullback. I just want to see them for the next 3 games, or the next 2 games until they play the Kangaroos. I want to see their full-strength side, and I want to see them really build some solid momentum. And I genuinely think the Kiwis could win this whole thing, mate. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. Do not count out the Kiwis. They are a scary, formidable, and there's just there seems this special energy around that camp of almost like an alpha aggressive, I don't know. I just get this vibe that they're just waiting for the chance to test themselves. They're waiting to get in a battle with Australia. What do you reckon, Timmy, in regards to New Zealand, Fiji?
Yeah, mate, the Fijians will be out for an ambush, but I think the Kiwis will be far too strong in this. I know probably not the strongest opposition in Ireland, but you look at a few of the stats, and Hughes and Manu had 36 tackle breaks between them in that game. Geordie Rapana had another 12. The probably interesting talking point out of it and looking towards the next game is people sort of questioning the cheese, Brandon Smith, and his ability to go the 80 minutes. I think you've seen a pretty clear game plan by the coach to get 80 minutes into him and big minute games throughout the first 3 rounds of the tournament. They've obviously got Jeremy Marshall-King there who can deputise off the bench, but I think they want the cheese playing 80. Whether that's 80 at hooker or 60 at hooker and 20 off the bench, they've shown a bit of a tendency maybe. I don't know where they run with their 14 if it is going to be JMK, but I think they're going to go with Brandon Smith as an 80-minute hooker, which excites me. And he's done it in some softer games. Let's see if he can do it now in a tougher game against Fiji.
I was told the other day he's lost 6 kilos since he arrived over there, the cheese. So, As we said, these Kiwi sides, they always get better for the end.
Yeah, no, I've spoken about that quite a lot. Like, body composition matters for your position. It matters. So you're going to see a different kind of Sheeds. I think they go 14. I think they go him out of experience, safety. He can play in that 14 role if he has to. But in saying that, if Jerry Marshall can guess it, massive congratulations to him. Now, quickly, let's go. Fiji. Look, we don't want to discount Fiji at all. They're probably out of all of the could be upsets. Probably Fiji. PNG. I don't mind PNG. I really don't if they win this game. Anyway, so Fiji, don't count them out. Don't count them out. They've got some superstars that could do something special. Now on to Tonga versus Samoa. Arguably the match of the whole bloody tournament. I cannot wait for this game. And, after the game for Samoa, it seemed like the Samoan coach was a bit kind of we've had another big win. Are you going to respect us now? That was kind of vibe I got. He didn't actually say that specifically, but that's a vibe I got. But this is a test, man. This is the test. There's no more talking. There's no more, look at all our potential and look at all our players with the big names and all this rah, rah, rah. All the talk doesn't matter anymore. It means absolutely nothing, whether you're a $1.05 favourite or whether you're $10 outsider. You're playing for your country. You're playing for Tonga Samoa is some of the most deeply ingrained rivalry you can find in the world in regards to their history, what they've been through against each other, all that kind of stuff outside of rugby league. Time for talk is over, baby. Time for talk is over. How do you see this match playing out, Guru?
Yeah, looking forward to this one. It's going to be a cracker, as it always is. To be honest with you, mate, I can't wait till the team list come out. I think both teams are still trying to work out their best halves pairing. Samoa, you've got obviously Jerome Luai, who's been sensational the last 2 weeks. You've got Milford, who I thought he was great yesterday.
Yeah,
and good. You've also got Chanel Harris-Tavita, who 2 weeks ago I thought he was going to be a certainty to be the halfback for this side. I'm not quite sure which direction they're going to go now. And then Tonga, you've got young Katoa, who was unbelievable in his game yesterday, and then you got Amon and Lolahia, who I think Lolahia and Jerome Luai, I think they're the locks in both sets of halves, but it'll be interesting to see which way they go as far as the other guys. So, mate, I can't wait for it. I think Tonga do get the job done here, but mate, it's probably the closest we're going to get to a Origin sort of style atmosphere, I think, which I'm really looking forward to.
Timmy?
Yeah, took the words out on my mouth there a little bit, Guru. I think it's going to be a battle of the halves. And I mean, as you said, team list will be very interesting because they do have a few options. I don't know which way Samoa will go, but I suggest that the opportunity to tinker with their side they lost when they got done by 60 against England, because it went, all right, we can't afford to rest players and that we need to get on the front foot and get combinations purring for the knockout stages. So the fact they went with Milf suggests that they'll probably do the end. Now, Milf was very good. I would prefer CHT there just because I think he's a bigger body defensively. Milf was great against France, but, pretty soft opposition in that one. I think their forward packs are both unbelievable and may somewhat cancel each other out. I mean, you look at Tonga, in their back row, they're trying to fit Taumalolo, Fafita, Koloamatangi, Olakwatu, Kafusi. It's ridiculous. So,
Yeah, I agree, Timmy. I will say in the forward pack, I think Taumalolo could be just the difference.
Yeah.
I don't really... Samoa have an incredible forward pack. They have an explosive, completely just tear games apart player. I think Taumalolo might be that guy, and he looked like an angry big fella on the weekend. First try, he just went, oi, I dare you to try and stop me. Guska, boom, straight over you. But yeah, I think that Taumalolo could be the difference in the middle. I agree with everything you guys are saying in regards to halves. That's the key selection for me. It's going to be interesting. Do you go with a guy like Amon, who's had more NRL experience, so it's bigger games, or do you go with Katoa, who has just been really, really good, but he's also really young? On the other side, could you maybe put Milford at 14 just to I guess protect yourself in case CHT and Jerome don't gel? I'm not sure. It's a tough call, and that is why game one for Samoa was so important. If they lost 24-12, it wouldn't matter. You'd go, that's our 6 and 7 right there. Because they got beaten by so much, as you said, Timmy, it changed everything for them. It changed their whole World Cup because they do not know where they're really at because of the position, the people that they're playing. But as we've said, both teams have done ever since. Well, Tonga have done pretty much what they should have done the whole time. Been a bit scratchy here or there, but they've done what they should really do. Samoa, outside of that first game, have done everything they should do. So you cannot take away from the fact that they have towed up teams that they should towel up, and they've done everything that's been asked of them after that first game. They also had no warm-up match as well, so that may be a reason why they struggled so much in that first game. But again, it all means nothing after this game. That we'll know where either side is, really. We really will. So I cannot wait. I really cannot wait. England versus most likely PNG. Although I definitely back England in, I think PNG do not count these guys out. You telling me the PNG side doesn't have 80 minutes in them that they could do something special? I don't know. What do you reckon, boys?
Mate, I thought, as I said before, I thought PNG were incredibly unlucky not to beat Tonga a couple of weeks ago. And if it was Tonga versus England, we'd be saying how close and how good this game's going to be. So I'm not sure what sort of value you'll be able to get out of PNG, but I've got a feeling it'll be a lot deeper than what it should be.
Agreed. I think, although I think England, this is a real good game for England because it'll be, if they do really well, you go, okay, there's no more questioning as to whether they're a threat. They're a threat. Timmy, how do you see this England versus PNG?
It's going to be a cracker, isn't it? Because, I mean, both sides are coming into it, well, PNG with a game to go, obviously, against Wales, but with a fair bit of momentum, the Pommies in particular. But, you know, will there be some complacency from England? From what we're seeing from them so far, I don't think there will, but you just talk about this underdog status and what it means. You've got nothing to lose, and these PNG boys are going to go out there, assuming they get there, they're going to go out there all guns blazing to rattle this Pommy side, and they've got the menace in them to do it. So, look, I think you'd be hard-pressed to say that there'll be an upset, but I think I'm with you, Cam. If there's going to be one game in the quarters that there will be an upset, well, this might be it.
Be unlike England to shit the bed in a World Cup, wouldn't it? It's a proud
Could you
Aussie.
imagine? Could you imagine? Oh, my God. I don't think they will. I think we're looking at a very different England side this World Cup. I've been singing their praises quite strongly. But I tell you what, if they take PNG lightly, they'll find themselves in a dogfight, and they'll be the bad thing is if they take them lightly and they find themselves in a dogfight, it's actually not about that game. They can win that game, but they'll be rolling into next week battered and bruised, because if there's one thing you roll out of a PNG game, it's battered and bruised. And they don't want to get into that. They want to tear them apart, go through them. Thanks, boys. Thanks for coming. Get to next week. But, cannot wait for this week, guys. Anything else, boys?
No, mate, I think we're done. Looking forward to a big week of footy, mate. You enjoy yourself over there. Put your feet up. You deserve it.
Mate, I'll try. I'll do my best. I'm doing my best, Guru. Doing my best, mate. No, thanks, boys. Always appreciate it. Thanks, Maddie. Appreciate it. And I'll go and fuck myself in Europe.